We got with us the Honorable John Fund, Wall Street Journal's opinionjournal.com. Hello, Mr. Fund.
Pleasure. Thank you.
How you doing? You got your pulse on the nation as usual?
Well, at least the America's heartland, the part that doesn't feed off the federal government inside the Beltway.
Attaboy, the flyover country. Well, we want to ask you about the Beltway, though. I want to know why Max Baucus threw a party yesterday and nobody came.
Well, because his bill is incoherent. It's a Rube Goldberg.
Hey, since when is that a problem?
Well, except the problem is you got to have a bill that either the left wing likes or the right wing likes, and if they both hate it, where are you going to get the votes? Because the left wing hates it because it's so stingy. I mean, it effectively means that poor people who can't afford these outrageously priced policies won't be getting enough federal subsidies to pay for them. If they can't get health insurance, guess what? They get penalized for not having health insurance. They get a fine of $3,800 a year. And the conservatives are upset because all of this is basically designed to eventually have a takeover of private insurance by government as the private insurance market collapses.
Oh, you're a smart man. You're just what we've been talking about, John. I'm glad to hear that I'm I'm on your same page on that because it's so obvious. It doesn't really. A lot of these details don't matter much. They're just laying the groundwork. They're just forming the skeleton now. And they're going to put meat on those bones for years to come if they have, just like every other entitlement program that we've ever had.
John, I was just looking at Mickey Kaus on Slate.com, and he was talking about the bounce that Rasmussen's talking about. Did you see Rasmussen today?
No.
So essentially what he's saying is that initial glow after the speech dissipated very quickly, but the real bounce... Joint session speech. But the real bounce is actually that his negatives about healthcare have risen to an all-time high of 55% of American people do not like this healthcare plan and the way he's selling it.
Well, I'm not surprised because the president is basically saying, I am not going to sign a bill that changes anything because you can keep the health care coverage you want, or if you're a Medicare recipient, you can keep the Medicare coverage you want. And at the same time, he says, well, we're going to have all these changes. We're going to have to really whack Medicare Advantage seniors, the 24% of seniors who've signed up for privately managed Medicare plans. We're going to have to whack health savings accounts that 8 million Americans depend upon. We're going to have to really stick it to young people because they're going to have to get health insurance, and the premiums are going to be much higher than they normally would be because they're not going to be risk-adjusted based on age very much. So in other words, seniors who are much more likely to get sick always pay more for health insurance. Now young people who rarely get sick will now have to pay more for health insurance.
That's right, because it can't be adjusted. Well, insurance is not insurance anymore. I mean, we're losing the whole concept of it. I mean, I still haven't understood how you can have a situation with regard to pre-existing conditions saying, I've just been diagnosed with cancer and I need a policy to cover that. That's just kind of foreign to me. I know it's going to cost an awful lot of money to somebody before very long, and that's the free lunch part of it, I guess. John, let me ask you this: what is this Acorn thing kind of broken through this media complacency barrier? It looks to me like finally the American people are seeing what's going on here, and it's causing the White House some difficulty. And now Jerry just told me she thinks that there's a vote. There was a vote in the House today that.
On the National Review
to
keep funding Acorn.
To keep funding it. What do you think? What's the significance of all this Acorn? These revelations.
Well, first of all, Acorn claims that it's going to have an independent audit of all of its activities. But last year, 8 of their board members asked for an independent audit, and they were thrown off the board for their impertinence. So now we have the same people who basically refuse to have an independent audit, handpicking their own independent auditor this time to try to call off the media dogs. I don't think that's going to work because Acorn's entire leadership from top to bottom has to be purged. Instead, they have brought in this fake review committee run by John Podesta, who was head of the left-wing think tank Center for America Progress, and Andy Stern.
Maybe Van Jones will help lead it.
And well, Andy Stern, who's head of the Service Employees International Union, is also on this review committee. Andy Stern is the chief funder of Acorn after the federal government.
I can't even respond to that. I mean, it's beyond laughable, and I'm
not
hoping
the fox invading the hen house. It's the fox building a new hen house.
That's exactly right. Because don't you know it's going to just change the name and move to a new building?
No, but I think we know the 196 affiliates Acorn has. We know the hydra-headed monster in detail, and they have front groups, back groups, side groups, bottom groups. They've got so many groups, but we now know their names. And I have to tell you, we can track them down. If we can defund them in Congress, we can track them down and take away their funding. You know, the joke inside Acorn is we have so many front groups that our left hand doesn't know what our extreme left hand is doing.
John, you got any thoughts on this news today that we're turning our backs on missile defense system for Eastern Europe?
70 years ago today, the
Yes.
Soviet Union invaded Poland. Hundreds of thousands of people were massacred and sent to Siberia as a result of that. For us to basically thumb our nose at the Poles on the day of one of their greatest national tragedies is beyond historical amnesia. It is an insult, and it makes me ashamed to be an American today.
Wow. I don't think I could have said that any better myself. I just think that they're not paying attention, John. It's like they come off the campaign trail just long enough to make these momentous decisions. Obviously, the president's got plenty of help and all that kind of stuff, but they're not focusing.
Let me give you the best possible analysis of this. This is a domestic presidency. They just want foreign policy off of the headlines. They will do anything necessary to have a quiet life. If that means placating Hugo Chavez, if that means, snubbing the polls, if that means currying favor with... By the way, the only time they seem to want to take assertive foreign policy measures is when they cave into the unions and put tariffs on Chinese tires, which is a clear violation of the World Trade Organization rules. Now, look, there are ways of combating the Chinese. You can enforce intellectual property laws. You can be much more assertive in that.
That's harder.
The only time they're assertive overseas is when the unions tell them to be assertive.
Oh, John, I wish I could talk to you all day about this stuff, and maybe we will sometime. Thank you for being with us.